Going through Rashi Pinchas, we're in chapter 26, verse 52, and this is a very, very deceptively complicated parsha. Right? And God spoke to Moshe, so this is a very important Rashi because how the land was divided up is very confusing. He says, for these people, you shall divide up the land by inheritance according to the number of their names, according to the number of their names. So what does that mean? Let's look at Rashi. To these, the land of Israel, we divide up. Now, once you got a land, that's actually in today's Talmud passage. Once you get the land, it becomes a land of inheritance, and it's yours forever. And if you sell it, it comes back to you at the Jubilee year, unless you donate it to the temple and the temple sells it and you don't redeem it. Then it stays with the temple. But that's the only way you can lose, it can be lost. So Rashi says, to these the land shall be divided, and not to anybody under the age of 20. And let's say, of course, we're going to discuss this. Let's say they came into the category of 20 before the division of the land. So what this means is, when they entered the land of Israel, they didn't divide up the land right away. How did they divide up the land? It took them 7 years to conquer and then 7 years to divide it. So there'd be a significant number of people who turned 20 after they entered the land over those 14 years. Did they get their own portion? No, they did not get their own portion. They did not. They were part of the previous inheritance. Sharei Sheva is what Rashi says. Sharei Sheva Shanim Kavshu v'Sheva Cholku. They conquered the land for 7 years, and it took them another 7 years to divide it. Oh, Thera. So it took them another 7 years to divide the land. Oh, Shepsel. So it took them 7 years to conquer it and 7 more years to divide it. Lo natlu chelok ba'aretz. So the only ones who got a portion in the land were those sheish mios elef. Those 600 and Rashi says here 602,000, but really we know it was 600, 730. And if one of them had 6 sons, they took nothing but their father's portion only.
Your version says 602, Rabbi?
No, it says 600,000, 600. Oh, 600,000 and 1,000. But it's not really 600 and 1,000. It's really 600, 730. So what does this last phrase mean? But if they had 6 sons, they only took the portion of their fathers by themselves. What does that mean? That if they had 6 sons, they only took the portion of their fathers by themselves? That means is that it's a very complicated phrase. So what do we think that means? It means, so the commentary here says, to these the land shall be divided. It's not an assurance that those counted in the census would survive to take a portion in the land. It's a statement of the rule by which the apportioning of the land would be conducted. Meaning to each one who was part of the census, he got one portion. It doesn't mean he's going to survive. It means he gets one portion, and his portion is distributed amongst all of his descendants. Yeah, that Ian? Yeah.
But if he has 6 sons.
Let's say he has 60 sons. He gets one portion.
And his 60 sons divided.
Yeah, they all divide up that land, and it goes back. And that's out. And then at the Jubilee year, it goes back, and then they would redivide it up. Well, the Talmud discusses, what do they do at the Jubilee year? Does it go back? That's it was just divided up amongst the children. Does it get redivided up amongst the children at the Jubilee year? Understand? You understand? Let's say you have 2 sons. One person comes in, then they divide up, and then he dies. They have the 2 children. Then it comes back to the Jubilee year. Does it go back and then they redivide it, or do just keeps moving?
Does that mean that all those under 20 will always be disinherited?
All those under 20 get the inheritance. They are all sharing in the one inheritance of their father. Right.
Father has to die.
The father has the land, they have to die.
In the Yovel-
Don't worry about it, he will. He will die. Pretty good bet.
Yovel year, it goes back to who, to the Shiva or to
To the person who had that territory.
So, right, so if the father's not there, then it's the two children that he had.
Right, so that's a question. That's a question. Does it go back? Does it get redivided or not? So the Talmud discusses how do we view those two children. Yeah, you can sit there, Neve. Just want to introduce people, so people know you're studying. Ian's a student at University of Maryland. Neve is going to be just finished his second year of studying in Israel. He's a student that is going to be at Princeton. Thera and Sam, they're longtime students of the yeshiva. Steve and Shoshana are longtime students. Larry is basically like a rabbi. He serves so many people spiritually throughout the community. And Seth is a Masmid, he's a Torah scholar. And Ari, what? That goes without saying. It goes without saying. He can write his own Wikipedia page.
She can say that. I'm totally fine.
He is an amazing laner,
Totally.
an amazing davener, and Ari is a student at the University of California in Davis, and a big scholar also. So Neva is organizing a lot of yeshiva guys to come to Shabbos to spend Shabbos with us in the yeshiva. Neva is the organizer, and Larry's also organizing. So Friday night we're going to have like a Geschmack Shabbos here this Shabbos. Okay, so now we go on to the next Rashi. The division of this land is very complicated for me. Rav Tarben Nachaso. So to the tribe of many you'll increase. V'lama'at Tam'it Nachaso. To the tribe of the few you'll give a few. Ish Lafi Pekudav Yutan Nachato. Each one will be counted according to his inheritance. Let's see what Rashi says this means. What?
It's a serious Rashi.
Yeah, it's serious Rashi. You had a question, Steve?
No.
Okay. L'Rav Tarben Nachato, to the tribe of many you shall increase its inheritance. L'Shevet Shaya Merubah Kusin, if the tribe had a lot of people, like tribe of Judah, for example, not new Chilek Rav, they were given a large portion. But now here's what's getting complicated. Even though the portions were not equal, it was entirely according to the number of people in the tribe that they divided the portions. But they did it by a lottery. But the lottery was not by chance, it was from God. Baba Basra explains that it was that they did it via God. The high priest was wearing the oracle, the Urim V'Tumim, and he would say by Ruach HaKodesh, by divine inspiration, if such and such a tribe comes up in the lottery, this will be the area given to him. And the tribes were written on 12 tickets. In 12 areas. Were written on 12 tickets. And they mixed them up in the box. And the prince put his hand in. And he would take 2 tickets. He would pick up the ticket with the name of his tribe. Well, why did he have to stick his hand in and get the name of his tribe? His tribe was already known. He was his tribe. So it's to show that the lottery was fixed by God, so to speak. And he got the boundary. And the lottery itself would shout out. This is like to make 1,001 distinctions, like the sorting hat in Harry Potter. Anybody read Harry Potter here? It's just me. Yeah, it's a sorting hat in Harry Potter, and
That's a great analogy.
And the lottery would shout out and say, "Ania Goral Alisi." I, the lot, came up with Vul Ploni to such and such boundary with Sheva Ploni for such and such tribe. And it says Alpia Goral. And the land wasn't divided by area, because some areas, some real estate is about better location, better property, better see, like everybody wants the water, and the water, the price is worth so much more. 1 second, Jerry. But rather it was done bishuma, by assessment of value. Beit korah keneged beit satov, hakol fi adamim. It was divided by value. But this is the way I understand the Rashi, and I'm open to correction, suggestions if I'm reading it wrong. So basically, the prince would put his hand in, and miraculously, he would always pick out the note that had his sticker on it, his tribe. Then he would put his hand in, and he would get the area that the land was divided into 12 separate, the entire land of Canaan was divided into 12 separate areas, and he would get, wait, Levi didn't get a portion, so it was Reuben, Shimon, Yehuda, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Yisachar. Ephraim, Menashe, and Benjamin. Okay, so it was 12 areas, but Reuben, Gad, and Menashe, we know Reuben and Gad were on the other side. We know which portion they were getting already. So everybody else was dividing it 10 and a half tribes, so to speak. And then once the tribes had their portion, each tribe was given its portion, then it was going to be further subdivided amongst the people of that area. So first, to a numerous tribe, they gave numerous, but it doesn't mean to a numerous tribe they gave more, because that was done by lottery. So what does it mean? It's a little bit confusing there. What does it mean when it says to a numerous one you shall give more people? So Rashi's telling us that even though by the lottery, it was all done by lottery, nevertheless, it worked out that the larger tribe got the more land. This reminds me when they did a lottery about who would get the certain honors in the synagogue, when I was at a synagogue once on the high holidays, who was going to get this honor. They did it by lottery. It just so happened to be that the first aliyah always went to the Kohen. So I guess that's what's going on here. It's very confusing to me, because what's the purpose of the lottery then, if we know how it's going to turn out? But Jerry has a question.
The two tribes that decided to remain Aver HaYarden on the other side of the Jordan.
2.5, right? 2.5 tribes. Reuben, Gad, and half of Menashe.
Yes. They, as I understand it, they selected to remain outside of the land of Israel.
Right.
So how does this lottery business work when you have 2.5 tribes making their own decision rather than God's?
Right. So we're going to get to that in 2 weeks, but they were, or next week, but they were obviously not going to be getting a portion in the land of Canaan, because they took their portion on the other side of the Jordan. Yeah, that's what I just mentioned. That you're absolutely right, Jerry. You're absolutely right.
But from the Pshat of Rashi, it sounds like the miracle included them, meaning that when they finally divided,
Right.
that even the tribe of Reuben came and miraculously, it said his portion, which was already given to him.
Yeah, it seems to be that way. So, but now let's look what's up. Look at the next verse. It's very confusing for me, this whole scene. So I review it every year, and every year I understand less and less. Ach begoral yechaleket haaretz. By a lottery, the land will be divided. Lishmot matot avotam yinchalu. According to the names of their fathers' tribes shall they inherit. So what does this mean? Let's look at what Rashi says this means. What does Rashi say this means? Okay, so Lishmot matot avotam. Elu yotzei Mitzrayim. Those people who went outside of Egypt. Shina katuv nachalazu. Scripture made this inheritance different. Mikol nachalot shebetorah. So this is, now it's going to get a little tricky. The people who left Egypt, this inheritance is different from all other inheritances in the Torah. How so? Anybody know? Okay, listen. Beautiful. Shekol nachalot hachayim yorshim et hametim. Because in general, the living inherit the dead. Father's got 8 boys. He dies. The living 8 boys inherit him. They divide it up. The first one gets a double portion. The others divide up the remaining 7 portions. But Kan Meitim Yorshim et Achayim. Here the dead inherit the living. Ever hear of that? It's like this. Keitzad. Shnei Achim Yotzei Mitzrayim. Rashi gives us an example. You love this, Steve, right? This is great stuff.
I'm getting confused, yes.
So let's say there are 2 brothers who left Egypt. Let's call them Reuven and Shimon. So these 2 men who left Egypt, they had sons, and they were under 20, and they're going into the land. They had sons who were going into the land. One of the sons, one of the people entering the land, let's call him Reuven, he had 1 son, and the other one who entered the land had 3 sons. Okay, so Reuven has 1 son, Shimon has 3 sons. So what we're saying is the one who has 1 son, he gets 1 portion in the land, but the one who has 3 sons who are going in, he's going to be given 3 portions. So the living are inheriting the dead, because he's going to die in the wilderness. He's inheriting from the living. He gets 3 portions going into to them to be divided.
That's a contradiction of the rule, right?
Normally, the 3 would have to divide up to 1.
No,
I know.
because they're under 20,
Right? They go into the land.
right? And they shouldn't get anything according to the rule.
They get from what their father is bequeathing them, but their father is bequeathing them 3 portions because the dead, in this case, inherit the living. So that's what Rashi's saying.
The more kids you have, the more like.
The more kids you have from that first generation, the more land you have. But not the more kids, the more boys. We're going to see the girls are going to have a little bit of what to say here, and that's going to change some things. But the more boys you have, the more land you get. And that's why it says, to these the land shall be divided. Their inheritance then reverted to their grandfather. Why does it say to their grandfather? It should be to their father. I don't understand it. Their inheritance then reverted to their grandfather, and everybody divided it equally. Let's look at what the footnote here says. Let's see what the footnote says. The footnote explains it like this. That is the 1 portion taken by the 1 son, and the 3 portions taken by the 3 sons were then combined and viewed as if it were their grandfather's estate. The grandfather's estate, okay, yeah, I missed a step. The grandfather's estate was then divided equally between his 2 sons who were among those who left Egypt. Thus, the portion of the 1 son was equal to the combined portion of the 3 sons. So you do 1 more generation there. So 1 man is in Egypt. He doesn't go out, but he has 2 sons going out. One has 1 son, one has 3 sons. Then the next generation, now the 2 sons are the ones who are not going into Canaan, but they had 4 offspring between the 2 of them. It goes back to their grandfather, and their grandfather then says to the 2 sons, all my children together, divide up 4 portions. And so they get a division of 4 portions. Even the one who has 1 son gets 2, and the one who has 3 gets 2. They had to make it a little bit more complicated for us. So
it's
yes.
not what we thought originally.
No, not the way I first explained it, yeah. They just further divided amongst, they go back to the grandfather. But that's why I have to do this every year, because every year I forget it exactly. Lishmos, and that's why it states, according to the names of their father's tribe shall they inherit. After their sons took their portions, they then went back and divided amongst their fathers. Who left Egypt. And how they had divided it first, according to the number of those went out from Egypt. They only would have gotten 2 portions. Now they got 4 portions. Okay, you follow that? Does everybody follow that, or should we repeat it? You don't get it? Should I repeat it?
Maybe it's crazy, but that's all right.
According to the names of their father's tribes, shall they inherit. Steve, this is it. Please take upon this assignment with a joyous heart. I'd like you to research for all of us if there's another example of this type of division of property in human history. Yeah, but that's your gut. Let's see what you can do with a few fingers on the keyboard. I'm sure you'll come up with something.
Take a look.
Yeah, I know. Like it sounds like this might have been Egyptian, because first of all, it's unusual to have this kind of story of people leaving one land and conquering their old homeland. That itself is a highly unusual story, and that's why they're like, why? Yeah, David, there's a chumash over there. The red books are like the second left to the left, second one from the end on the left.
Not everyone was in Egypt.
Not everybody was in Egypt. No, everybody, if you weren't in Egypt, you don't get to inherit. Get nothing. And wait, if you just join them in the wilderness, there couldn't be such a thing. There wasn't such a thing. What?
What if you were born in the wilderness?
That's why Moshe promised Yitro Jericho.
Right. If you were born in the wilderness to a person who left Egypt, then you inherited through the father. It's divided amongst them. Rashi, that, yeah. So we've seen so far how the tribes got their land, and then we saw the subdivision amongst the tribes. And then it says, Ach begoral. It says, by a lottery, the land should be divided. Rashi says, Yatsu, Yoshua, and Kalev. Joshua and Kalev were excluded. They were not included in the lottery. Kalev was given very special territory. It says, Vayinu Kalev at Chevron, Kasher Diber Moshe. Kalev was given Chevron. Remember, he went there when the spies were there. He went to Chevron to David. And it states, Al Pi Hashem, by the word of God, not Nulo. They gave Joshua et Ha'ir Asher Sha'al, the city he requested. What city did Joshua request? Anybody remember? Rabbi Yosef, it says Joshua chapter 19, verse 50. What? I don't know, we got to look it up. What was that city? Was it Yericho? Rabbi Yosef, did you find it? What city did Joshua request?
I don't remember this at all, but it can't be Jericho. Jericho was destroyed.
Joshua chapter 19, verse 50. Rabbi Yosef, can you transfer us to there? Joshua chapter 19, verse 50.
Yeah. He did marry Rahab,
They married Rachav, yeah.
but
Sure.
it couldn't be that he lived in Jericho.
Also, Joshua had no sons. The Gemara tells us that Joshua had no sons, he only had daughters. That's actually today's Daf Yomi also. So what do we find? Joshua chapter 19, verse 50. What does it say? The city requested
Timnat Serah.
Timnat Serah in the Hill County. Okay, it's a little bit random. I have to look at the Rashi there. Why did he want that city, Timnat Serah? Okay. Then the verse states, Lishmot matot avotam yinchalu. According to their father's tribes, they inherited. Yatsu gerim va'avadim. This excluded converts and freed slaves. They did not get any land. But neither did the Kohanim and the Levium. Well, the Levium got cities, but the converts and freed slaves, they got to partake in the laket shechavapeh, the gleanings. Okay, next verse. Al pia goral techalek nachato ben rabonat. On the basis of the lottery, the land will be divided. Whether it's a lot or a little. Hold on 1 second. Hold on, just stop my text from coming in. Okay. On the basis of the lottery, the land will be divided whether a lot or a little. But Rashi is going to comment on the fact that it says pi hagoral, the mouth of the goral. By non-pshat, we could say the pshat of it, the literal meaning means like on the basis, according to. But the word pi literally means a mouth. And that's what Rashi says, a goral yamidaber, the lottery would speak. Moshe Pirashi, like the lottery was actually shouting out. That's why I said, like, I'm pretty sure, it's not a stretch to say that the author of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, what's her name?
Rowling.
That's her pen name or that's her real name? But yeah, so J.K. Rowling is obviously influenced by the Bible, but it's not, even though it's not necessarily this, but like there's a lot of biblical imagery there or midrashim, which over the years have developed. So
This one kind of repeating what he said though.
that's what he says, like I already explained. He says I already explained it. Rashi is repeating himself. Rashi says that. Why does he need to repeat it? I don't know, but you're right. Okay, so now,
Why does the Torah need to repeat?
well, the Torah didn't see Pia Goral before. But the Torah it's kind of like summarizing here. But probably that's why, it's an excellent question. That's probably why Rashi says that it's being repeated, tell us this insight that the lottery was speaking. Why does it need to be done by lottery? Because you saw what happened when Moshe just appointed his brother Aaron and how everybody went crazy on him. Korach had a whole rebellion. Imagine how upset Jews would get if the real estate was being divided just like without transparency. You could see all sorts of people. Why does that person get the best land? It's by lottery. It's by God. You can't raise any objections. Right? Yeah, it's indisputable. You're going to argue with God, speaking lottery. So that's the argument. These are the ones from the tribe of Levi. Levi doesn't get anywhere. Okay, these are the families of Levi, Gershon, Kahas, and Merari. Mishpachot Levi. These are the families of Levi. Mishpachat HaLivni, Mishpachat HaChavroni, Mishpachat HaMachim, Mushi, Karchi, Kahas, Elidas, Amram. So from the tribe of Levi, there were the families of Gershon, Kahas, and Merari. And then from the Levi families, there were the following families. There was the Livni, the Chavroni, the Machli, the Mushi, the Karchi, and Kahas, Elidas, Amram. Well, does this make sense to everybody? Rashi says, that they were missing some of the families that descended from there. They were missing some of the families. B'Shem, and the wife of Amram, B'Shem Eshet Amram, was Yocheved. Moses' father was Amram, and his mother was Yocheved. She was the daughter of Levi. Asher Yoda'u Sola Levi b'Mitzrayim. So basically, Levi has a son named Kahas. Kahas has a son named Amram. So Amram is Levi's grandson. But Levi also has a daughter named Yocheved. And Amram, who's Levi's grandson, marries his aunt, who is named Yocheved. Moses is born from the union of his aunt with her nephew. There's only one problem with this, that the Torah specifically says that if there's a aunt who marries her nephew, the offspring is a mamzer. So an uncle can marry his niece, and in fact, the Talmud says the uncle should marry his niece back in those days, in the Talmudic times, but an aunt is not allowed to marry her nephew, and it's an arayos, it's a biblical prohibition. So we see from here that Moses married his aunt. Yeah, it's right there. I'm not making this up. It's right in the text.
Because before the Torah was given.
Okay, so that's the justification. It says it was before the law said that you're not allowed to do it. But but then you wonder, like, if it worked to create the greatest human being in the history of the world, why shouldn't we allow it? It worked. And don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating for this. I'm just wrestling with it. We had a question, Jeff?
It works too well, so they're gonna stop it.
Yeah, because otherwise you'd make another Moses. You had a question, Ian?
No, yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah.
Because there, just like there are a lot of consequences to the fact that you would be in mom's area in terms of like, like lineage and stuff.
Yeah, but because it came, all of the great Jews came from Mamzerim, because Moses would have been a Mamzer. David came from the descendant of Moab, who was born from Lot and his daughters. So this is a big problem. Yes, Ari.
I was gonna say that
David also, right. Let's see what the Rashi, this is the type of stuff, by the way. I'm so glad that we study it like this, going through each verse with the Rashi, because if you don't study like this, you just zoom through the text and you miss over like the basic. Oh boy, look who just came. We have a birthday boy arrived. Our Avi is his birthday, and we celebrate by saying, Avi,
One miso soup cooked to order for the birthday boy.
wow. Avi, please eat your miso soup very nicely. Good job, Avi. Okay, so what does Rashi say here? Oh, wait, we have to stop. It's time to daven. Wow, we're late. Sorry about that. Time to daven. Missed